Welcome back to Umpire Magazine, The Hot Take. I'm Alex, and I need to read you something. I have here, from last week's episode, a direct quote from one Jamie, who described MEC-VW's Invisible Ink billboard war as, and I quote, petty and well-formatted, and called it the Follywood brand. Jamie, congratulations. MCVW heard you. He has now dispatched a full lighting crew at midnight to reposition a billboard with a personally prepared curtain and a spotlight. You manifested this.
I'm Jamie, and I will take full credit for that, actually. Also, welcome back, everyone. This is the show where one of us loves cinema and the other one treats it like a crime scene. But Alex, before you start dismantling things, I need to follow up on something. Last week, you built an entire taxonomy. Whispering to ferns, bullish. Naming espresso machines, trending bullish. Naming hard drives after Shakespeare, pending. I need updated rulings because this week, MCVW has introduced shadow angle clearance forms and Pitch Black wrote a 3-page rebuttal to a parking attendant on monogrammed stationery. Where do these land on your chart?
Shadow clearance forms. Catastrophically bearish. Monogrammed cease and desists to parking attendants. I want to say bearish, but honestly, it's so unhinged it might circle back around to bullish. The taxonomy is breaking down, Jamie. Follywood is outpacing my capacity to categorize its nonsense.
The nonsense is evolving faster than your cynicism can adapt. I love it. But okay, this week's Umpire Magazine. The headline: Space Lost floats to 62 million, but nobody seems to like it. Alex, $62 million.
Nobody seems to like it. That's in the headline. The magazine put that in the headline. Last week I called this film a collective hallucination where everyone thinks they're enjoying themselves, and now Umpire has essentially made that the masthead. $62 million for a 4 out of 10. The audience is sleepwalking to the box office with their wallets open and their critical faculties switched off.
Or, the audience is having a perfectly nice time. Thank you very much. That's literally what the magazine says. They say sometimes the audience is the real critic, and the audience is saying we're having a perfectly nice time. That's not sleepwalking. That's conscious, deliberate enjoyment. 21.8 million in a single week, cumulative 62 million, and it's still going. Pitch Black is emailing crayon storyboards at 4:47 in the morning with margin notes that say, "The moon feels wrong," and somehow it's working.
The moon feels wrong. Written in crayon, in the margins of a storyboard, at 4:45 in the morning. And this person's film has made $62 million. Jamie, I have been wrong about many things in my life, but I have never been more correct that Follywood economics is a hallucination dressed in a business suit.
Meanwhile, Pitch Black's office door now requires a secret knock so complicated that a visiting executive stood in the hallway for 40 minutes and then quietly wept. That's not a studio head. That's a final boss in a dungeon crawler. And his film is #1. I'm going to defend this man until the heat death of the universe.
Please don't. Let's talk about Join Jupiter because it quietly doubled. 12.8 million in a week, 28 million cumulative, also a 4 out of 10. Last week it opened at 7.6, and I attributed it entirely to Pitch Black whispering to a prop fern. The fern-powered momentum that Umpire literally named. Well, the fern has apparently been watered because this thing nearly quadrupled its weekly take.
The fern is thriving, Alex. The fern is a load-bearing structural element of Pitch Black's entire creative ecosystem. And 28 million for a comedy that critics gave a 4. The magazine compares Space Lost and Join Jupiter to students who ace the exam without attending a single lecture. And honestly, that's the most relatable metaphor Umpire has ever written.
You know what? I'll give you something here. And I need you to not mark the date this time, because last week you marked the date when I showed any warmth and I'm still uncomfortable about it, but Join Jupiter nearly quadrupling its weekly gross is genuinely surprising. Not good, surprising. like finding a spider in your shoe that somehow knitted a tiny sock.
I am absolutely marking this date. August 6th. Alex compared Join Jupiter's success to a spider knitting a sock. That's practically a love letter. But I won't dwell on it because we need to talk about the press releases. Mike's Movies issued 2 statements this week. 2. And they both start with regarding today's rumor mill story. Alex, they've learned nothing.
Last week, those press releases were making the stock go up. 1.2% here, 1.3% there. I said screaming at posters was bullish, remember? Well, this week, both statements tanked the stock. Down 2.2% on the elevator charades 1, down another 2.1% on the billboard standoff. That's over 4 points total. The market has finally done what I thought was impossible. It has developed taste.
The magazine says both press releases landed with the grace of a penguin on a water slide. That image alone is worth the subscription. But think about it. Last week, press releases about seances and poster screaming went up. This week, press releases about elevator charades and billboard curtain calls go down. What changed? The content is equally unhinged.
The magazine actually suggests, and this is devastating, that sometimes the best response to a silly rumor is a dignified silence and perhaps a nice cup of tea. MaxIW has never had a dignified silence in his life. The man made a junior analyst mime vertical integration before pressing the lobby button. He cannot help himself. And now, it costs him 4 points.
I genuinely feel for the Mike's Movies shareholders who opened their brokerage app and saw regarding today's rumor mill story twice in 1 week. That's not investor relations. That's a hostage situation. And now there's a shadow clearance form. No crew member may cast a shadow within 6 feet of McVWs without submitting paperwork in triplicate. Alex, my taxonomy ruling request from earlier. I need an answer on this one specifically.
Shadow clearance forms. Cedar-scented confidential memos about shadow proximity. Final ruling. Aggressively bearish. The most bearish thing I have ever classified. If the stock doesn't drop again next week, I will eat a prop fern on this podcast.
I am holding you to that. Now, the bottom of the chart, because it's a graveyard down there. The Rising Cathedral pulled $167,000 for the week against a $3 million lifetime, and the magazine says the cathedral has risen about as far as it's going to. Alex, last week you were writing epitaphs for paper comets, and now Umpire is writing them for everything.
Cold Open earned $424,000. It's a thriller mystery. The magazine calls it the equivalent of a wet handshake. Technically it happened, but nobody felt anything. That is surgical. That is the kind of sentence that ends a film's theatrical run and its feelings simultaneously. And The Last Voyage? 2 out of 10. The worst reviewed film in cinemas. A documentary romance hybrid that documents very little and romances no one. The doctor has gone to lunch, Jamie.
The doctor has gone to lunch. Umpire really chose violence this week. But okay, I want to pivot to the new arrivals, because there are 2 films opening August 7th, and I want to be optimistic about at least one of them. A Giant Among Us, adventure fantasy, 3 out of 10.
Its tagline is, "If I was just a bit smaller." The critics wish the film had taken its own advice. It stumbles into theaters with all the grace of its titular character trampling through a forest, clumsy, destructive, and blissfully unaware of the damage it's causing. That's not a review. That's a restraining order.
And The Rising Horizon, an animated romance. Also, 3 out of 10. Critics compared it to a first-draft PowerPoint presentation that somehow escaped the studio's recycling bin. Alex, I wanted to be optimistic. I came here with optimism prepared, and Umpire just took it out back and put it down.
Not a single film above a 4 out of 10 in the entire tracked slate. The magazine compares it to an entire restaurant, getting 1 star from every food guide simultaneously. Last week I said the bar had tunneled through the Earth's crust. Jamie, It has now reached the core. There is no more bar. The bar has been consumed by the planet's molten interior. The ice is not cracking. That was a clinical observation. I specifically said I don't respect it. Stop marking dates. But look, we should start wrapping up. This week's Follywood is a fever dream factory. Umpire's words, not mine. And somehow the fever is profitable. The scores are in the basement, the money is on the ceiling, and everyone in between is filing shadow clearance forms and whispering to plants.
And I love every single second of it. Next week, we've got A Giant Among Us and The Rising Horizon, stumbling into theaters with their 3 out of 10s, Space Lost probably pushing towards 70 million, while critics continue to be baffled, and presumably MCVW will issue another statement that costs his shareholders another 2%. I cannot wait.
That's our show. I'm Alex. If you're a Mike's Movies shareholder, maybe...